Okay, Senor Canales, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate you. One of the first things that I got to talk to you about is AI prisons. Have you heard about?
AI prisons, no
Yeah,
idea, man.
so there's a company called Cognify, and I don't know if he's the owner or the creator of this technology, but the videos I watched, they kept mentioning his name, and his name is, of course, I forget it now. Hang on, let me find it really quick. Something Al Galahi, AI prison.
AI prison.
I want to make sure I get his name right. AI prison. I was just working on an episode about this. Hashim Al Galahi is his name. And so the concept is that instead of sending hard criminals to prison for 5, 10, 50 years, what they're going to do is use AI technology to somehow connect these devices to your brain and make you experience 5, 10, 50, 20 years in prison, but only in your mind. They're going
like
to your brain
feelings.
waves, or say again.
Like feelings, like
Yeah, exactly. So only in your, I guess you're going to sit in this chair. They'll hook you up to these devices, and in your mind, it will feel like they'll trick your brain into thinking or perceiving time pass much more slowly, and you'll feel like you've actually spent 5 years in prison. And not only that,
what?
but
Uh-huh.
another idea that they have is they're going to make you experience the crime that you committed. So if you raped a woman or
Oh,
you stabbed a man to death or you blew up a bunch of people at a grocery store or something, they will make you experience that same pain and misery and fear and all that type of stuff in order to induce feelings of empathy so that you then have empathy for the people that you hurt and you won't commit those same crimes again. And the whole logic behind this, or rationale I should say, is that it'll focus much more on rehabilitation rather than punishment for people's crimes. So they believe they can manipulate somebody's brain chemistry or their brain waves or whatever's going on to such a degree that they'll change the way you think and fundamentally who you are as a person, because they're talking about implanting false memories into
hmm.
your brain so that when you come out of this process or procedure, you're a new, better, more productive member of society. So that's the basic idea. And I'm very curious to know, what do you think about this?
Damn. Is that even possible? Because I really think that technology doesn't exist right now. I know that a company wants to put like AI, it's like a chip that they put in your ears. So when you're like working a job or at the office, they know if you're putting attention and you're being productive, right? But it's more like I would say like an eye reader, that when you're like looking at your screen and you're reading or typing, they know that you're focused. But inducing like emotions sounds weird. Like I don't even know if that's like really a punishment for that, because if you spend, I don't know, 5 years, you're gonna have like the device for 5 years, or just like you're gonna feel that in that moment and that's it.
Honestly, I don't know, but based on what I read and the videos I watched, it's going to be a very short amount of time. I guess they can program it to where you're going to be in this chair for 30 minutes or an hour, certainly not years. You're not going to be
Mhm.
walking around with a device
Yeah.
or something. You'll go into this room, they'll do the procedure, and then you'll leave. And that's all I understand at this point.
For me, like all the, I would say the punishment system, the legal system of jail and all of that is not useful. Because, for example, you want to spend like 5 years in prison, you're really not doing shit. You're just there wasting money, government money. They give you food, they give you a place to live, and you're just having a bad time with different people that also committed crimes, right? So it's not a place where you're going to be better, right? You're not going to learn good things. So I think a better way to think about the prison system is just to maybe change it a little bit. For example, put people to work, or a different kind of system that, okay, you have like a punishment because you're gonna work, you're not going to get like a like money or salary, but you are gonna be productive to society, you're gonna use your time good, right? For example, they, no, put people in jail to Beale Street, I'm sure they're gonna, be faster and finish that earlier. So I think going to the idea of that company making people feel the emotions or the things that they do is not really useful, and I don't really think that it's going to be legal, or you're gonna need a lot of time to make that legal, right? So I think it's better to think about a different way to put people in jail. Not in jail, but let's say make justice.
I see what you're saying. It seems like either option really isn't optimal at the end of the day. If the idea is we're supposed to rehabilitate these people, because I see what
Yeah.
you're saying from the AI perspective, which is just making them experience these artificial feelings, implanting false memories into a human's
Yes.
brain. I have the same question that you have, which is how is that even possible, first of all? And if that is
Yeah.
possible, what else are they going to use that technology for? That's a completely different question. But then on the other side, the traditional route that most criminals go right now, which is prison, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're putting them in a cage with all of the other most dangerous people in society. I
Exactly.
mean, there's people getting stabbed and what's exploited in there, men are getting raped in there, man. You're
Yeah.
getting just, I mean, it's the horrific shit. And you're treated like an
Definitely.
animal. And I don't see how that's supposed to somehow make you repent and regret everything that you've done and then just walk back into society after 20 years thinking you're just going to reintegrate. It makes absolutely no sense. And that's the idea behind this technology. They're saying they want to reduce the recidivism rate, which is the rate at which people get out of prison, commit another crime, and then go back to prison. It's very high in
Mhm.
some places like the US, for example. And I can totally get behind the idea of trying to find an alternative. But much like you, I don't know if this whole AI thing, first of all, is even possible. And second of all, the ethical question behind it. Like there's so many questions I have. Like who is in charge of implanting these false memories? How do we
Mhm.
know which memories they're actually implanting? How do we know they're not going to take it to, like, imagine somebody who has their finger on the button and they just hate criminals with a passion and they're supposed to implant A, B, and C, but just because they hate these people, more specifically, Latino criminals or black criminals or whatever, they're just going to take it to the max and go from A to Z and just fucking torture you mentally and put you
Mhm.
through 130 years of prison when you had a 3-year sentence. We don't know. So I think there's a lot
Yeah.
of ethical questions as well. But back to the prison thing, do you think that just putting people to work is a better alternative? Because that actually happens right now in some prisons in certain countries. They make them work on farms, they make them produce license plates and car tires and different products, usually for pennies per day.
Mhm.
Essentially, slave labor. And it's all justified because, well, you committed a crime. You shouldn't have the same rights as everybody else. So it's fine. And we just kind of look the other way. But do you really think that is the best form of rehabilitation?
No, I think it's the best I would say, for the economy of the country, but
Mhm.
not for people. If you want to fix like a problem from the roots, you need to go to the social thing, right? So you need to take a person, put them in, I would say, psychology treatments. You have to really put your time in a person so they can become better when they go out of jail, right? They come to the society and they will be productive, they will be good citizens, right? So I would say that it's more about how you treat the person and how you put them in therapy, and I don't know, like, what else you can do, but really put effort in that person and not just putting them in jail and putting them to work. Because of course, this is not like that is not a solution, and the jail is gonna be full, I would say, all the time. Because if you do not fix society, you're gonna have people committing crimes every time, right? So I think people need, or governments need, to find a way to treat people in jail better, so they can, when they come to society, they will be better citizens. But I don't know how. I don't know what else we can do.
I don't know either, man. But I do agree that focusing on the symptoms of the problem doesn't fix the problem itself. It's a societal issue. And I guess my question would be, if that technology is real, if it's possible to change somebody's personality, their memories, because I'm of the opinion that a man really isn't much without his memories. It's our experiences and our memories of those experiences that influence a lot of what we do right now. I mean, every moment of every day. So if you change that, you're changing who a person is, and who
Exactly.
gets to decide who we're changing these people into. You know what I mean? First of all, we have to define what's good and bad and what's right and wrong for society at large. And that's a very lengthy debate, in my opinion. And then we get to decide who is in charge of implementing the software. And not only that, if that's possible, why don't we do that with children that are showing signs, psychotic
Mhm.
behavior or antisocial behavior or whatever it may be that turns these people into criminals? Because if you're waiting until they turn 20 or 30 or 40 and commit the crime,
Yeah.
you have that technology. Shouldn't we be focusing, like you said, on the roots? But that gets even trickier when you talk about hooking a child up to some AI machine and
Yeah.
changing who they are as people. That's some Black Mirror shit, bro.
Yeah, that is not ethical. Man, it's hard because if I don't know like the I would say the numbers, but I'm sure that of 100 people that commit crimes, I'm sure that less than half or maybe 20 people are just like people with mental illness, and the other people are just people with social problems, poverty, or maybe they are close to, I don't know what's the name, like gangs and things like that. So I really think that it's hard because to fix that you need to fix basically a country.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Um, and we obviously don't have the answers on how to do that. I'm fascinated by the technology. Have you seen Black Mirror before? Have you watched the show?
I saw the first episode, like the
Okay.
big one. I think was like the minister and the pig, something like
Yeah,
that.
man, that was some dark
Yeah, it
shit.
was
Yeah,
dark.
but
Yeah.
there's one episode, and I don't know what season it was, but there was this woman who's was dating this guy, and the guy convinced her to help him kidnap this girl. And I don't know what they did to her. I guess they tortured her and then killed her and buried her out in the woods or some crazy shit. I don't remember what happened to the boyfriend, but she got caught, and they had a similar device that they could hook up to her brain and just erase all of her memories. So what they did, bro, this shit was so twisted. What they did was they took that device, erased all of her memories, and then they involved an entire town of people in this situation where they're all in on what's happening. They all know what's happening. She's the only one. Her memories have been erased. She wakes
Mm.
up in this room with pills all over the floor, and she's confused and sees pictures of the girl who was kidnapped. And it looks enough like her that she assumes it's her daughter or something like that. So she goes outside running around looking for her lost daughter. And everybody in the town refuses to speak to this girl. And most of them are just holding their phones up, like recording the girl. And she's like, why won't you talk to me? What the fuck's going on? So this is going on all day. And then out of nowhere, somebody is like trying to kill her. There's a dude with a rifle shooting at her. So of course she's running, screaming for help, all frantic, and everybody in their houses is just like recording her, just watching it. Nobody talks to her, helps her. And so long story short, she ends up running into another girl who appears to want to help her. And she doesn't know that she's in on the game too. And at the end of the story, this is a spoiler alert for anybody listening. At the end of the story, it gets revealed that she's on some kind of game show where the entire town knows the crime she actually committed, which was kidnap this girl, kill her, record it, and then bury this girl in the middle of the woods. So the metaphor is like, now you know how it feels. Now you know how that little girl felt. She was helpless. She was getting tortured, murdered, and you were just standing there watching with the phone. Now you know how it feels. And so at the end of it, she gets like it gets revealed and she sees that. And then what do? They put the device back on her head. They erase the memories again, and she does it all again the next day.
Uh,
And the rest of her life will be like that, day after day. And she doesn't even understand because her memories have been erased. And so
yeah.
that's what I think of when I think of this technology applied to prisoners. It could very easily be abused by sadistic people who think criminals deserve this type of stuff. And it's not about justice or rehabilitation. It's like you think they deserve to suffer because they've done something horrible. But doesn't that make you horrible? You know what I mean?
And yeah, and you don't even know why that person. really did it.
Yeah.
You don't know if there's really like a, I don't know, like a good reason for that, because sometimes we are like, we always like to put the finger on a person and say you are bad, you are the bad person, but you don't know that person's life. So like you need to have like certain, like I would say, reasoning, and really use that device well. And I don't think that device is good. I think it can be abused, and also having that technology, sooner or later it's gonna be public, and you can buy something like that and put it to a person.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
thinking about. The other
yeah,
uses, because imagine if you can actually alter your memories and your brain chemistry or whatever, what does that mean for education? Because if you can just put on this device and implant memories of you learning astrophysics or
yeah,
programming or how to kick a football like Messi, are we even human anymore? We can just download memories of skills that we never learned or download memories of relationships that we never had. That's some weird shit, bro.
the end of
How far
society.
does it go?
How's it gonna work if you know everything? You can get any job. So
Yeah, man. Joe Rogan talks about this a lot on his podcast. He believes that we're slowly becoming cyborgs and that eventually all of these external devices and software programs will, in fact, be implanted in us and we'll all become superhuman. But as you just said, if everybody's super, then nobody is. But maybe that's a good thing because if you're giving everybody the same opportunity, to be whatever they want to be, which I think is positive, then well, I think we'll see a very different form of society when we're not necessarily held back by a lack of education or ability. If we can all do the same things, then it really is down to each individual's choice what they choose to do with that power. I guess the concern is that there are people who are just evil and will figure out how to use power like that for very nefarious purposes.
I think the system that we have right now does not, I would say, fix with that. Just because if everyone have the opportunity to be someone, for example, be an engineer, for example, you're gonna have a lot of competition, and also you're gonna have a lot of technology. So a lot of work can be automated. So you are just gonna need like, I don't know, 20 people in a company, and maybe you have hundreds of thousands of people prepare for that job, and they cannot get a job because everything is automated. You just need a small amount of people working. So how is it going to work if you do not have people working, right? And that is happening right now with all the layoffs and all that. People, a lot of people have the same skill set, and that's something that we already know. Like, for example, being a common programmer, that's it's easy right now with all the resources that you have online. You can learn a technology really fast. So if something is fast, is accessible, everyone is going to learn. So what's the purpose of everything?
Speaking of AI, I mean, we've talked about this so many times, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're one of those people that isn't necessarily so impressed with AI anymore. Like at first, when ChatGPT came out, when Midjourney came out, all these tools, it's like incredible that you can just write a couple sentences and it does these amazing things. But I get the impression that you are, maybe because you're closer to the technology and you understand more how it works, you're just not necessarily excited about the fact that AI is going to start to automate so many things, and you're not convinced that it's so much smarter or better than human beings. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. But okay, AI is extremely cool, that's for sure. And that's something that, as you said, is going to automate a lot of things. So what I think is that AI is going to change the market, change it in a way that the skill set that you need to, I would say, stand to other people are going to be harder to obtain that skill set, right? So I said to you that before, that AI is just like basically inferring things from data that you have on internet. That's for sure. You can train a model with more and more and more data, but at the end of the day, it's going to be data that is somewhere, right? But it is more accessible. So I don't know, 5 years ago, to, I don't know, use a Excel spreadsheet, you needed to watch like a YouTube video or watch a tutorial. Right now, you can just use ChatGPT. It knows all the information, so you just copy and paste, right? So sooner or later, companies and all of that, they will know about that, and they will automate things that they are doing right now, automating a lot of stuff. So if they automate all of that, a lot of people that have like that skill set are gonna lose their jobs, and that is happening right now. I think last month Amazon laid off like 150,000 people with robots being in warehouses, I think. So it's just like the beginning. We have like AI. The boom of AI is like 3 years. I would say 3 years ago it started. So we have just 3 years. Just imagine in 10 years, it's gonna be harder and harder. So that's something that is concerning, definitely.
Agreed. Agreed, man. I mean, you know much more than I do about all this AI stuff. And speaking of companies like Amazon or any big billion or trillion dollar company that is in fact using robots to lay off people, Tesla's using robots. There's many companies. And one proposed idea, which I believe we talked about before, is all the biggest companies that are in fact laying off thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees and benefiting from robotic labor or AI technologies, is that there'll be a tax on these companies, and they'll have to take a percentage of all their profits and redistribute it to the same people that either lost their jobs or just to the public in general. I was watching a video the other day. This guy had an idea that if the biggest companies in the world benefiting from this technology paid this particular tax, so many countries could solve their national debt crises,
Mhm.
Jesus, national debt crises, and start to redistribute wealth to people that actually need that money, which some people might argue is a more socialist idea. But I haven't heard a better alternative to something that we
There
know
is
is
no
coming, like you
better
said. What do you
alternative.
think about
Yeah.
this idea of redistributing wealth in this way?
Of course, it's good, but do you really think that that is going to happen?
I don't.
And companies like Apple and Google are gonna just give money because they want it? Of course, no. And laws about that, the law is just controlled by big companies, by people with a lot of money. So it's hard. For me, that would be like a perfect situation, right? Just, I don't know if to the people, but to the government or to whatever. I don't know. The problem is that government steals money, so it's not like different. So in a perfect world, of course, give it to people or something like that. But I don't see that happening right now. Honestly, I don't see it. And
But wouldn't you argue or wouldn't you agree with the idea that if all these people are getting let go of their jobs and they can't find new ones because they haven't learned any new skills, not everyone can learn AI or machine learning or mechanics, robotics, and stuff like that. Wouldn't you argue that if the majority of the population now can't work because their jobs are being done by robots, that's bad for Apple, Samsung, Tesla, and all these other companies, so that they might be incentivized to redistribute that wealth so that people continue to spend money?
yeah, that's a good point, because if people do not have work, how are they gonna like afford those products, right? So I think that's a problem that they need to definitely think about, because I think that right now in the US it's hard to get a job in tech, for example, and even people with a lot of experience, they cannot get a job because even the companies cannot pay for them. So it happens I think in the US it's more common that they basically take a department and put it in India, in here in Latin America or whatever. They do it because they cannot pay people in the US. So how is that possible? How do you have a company in your country and you cannot pay your people salary, right? So it's nonsense. So so that's what they do. Of course, they in the US, I don't know, an engineer can earn 100K and here 30K. So they do it. But in the future, everything's going to be automated, more and more automated. So they do not need to pay money from here. They're going to use machines. And what is going to happen if people here don't have money and also people in the US don't have money? So
Do you have any idea why that would be, though? I mean, the biggest companies on the planet, just let's use tech companies in the US, literally can't afford the salaries that their American employees require, and therefore have to ship those jobs off to other countries where the currency is obviously going to go much farther. How is it that some of the biggest companies in the world making the highest profits don't have enough money to pay their employees? What do you think the reason for that is?
they have the money, but of course they want to maximize their profits, right? So of course they're gonna pay the cheapest, and they know that people from other countries are as capable as people in the US. That's for sure. So they, of course, are gonna use less money, more profit, more yachts, more cars, more.
Just basic greed is what it
Yeah.
sounds like. Yeah. Speaking of, though, people listening might not know you are, in fact, a software engineer, and you've been doing this for how long? How many years?
3 years working and 5 years like in the learning and all of that.
Okay, so 5 years collective experience, 3 years professional, and so you're
Yeah.
really like in the middle of the industry doing this every single day. And I know a lot of people listening want to be software engineers, or they've heard about it and all the money that can be made, and you can teach yourself. You don't have to go to college, so it seems very appealing to a lot of people. So I'm curious to know that right now in 2024, given the context and everything we've just talked about, would you still recommend that somebody gets into the field of software engineering knowing what you know about the industry?
Okay, the problem is that in 2019 with the COVID, all these software engineer stuff really boom, right? Skyrocket all the information and boot camps and people telling you that you can earn 120K per year easily. And that was true in 2020. But once the COVID ended and the companies understood that all the projects that they opened were just nonsense and start closing stuff, projects, departments, all the salaries went down, right? And the competition increased, right? So we have less opportunities, but more people doing it. The problem is that if you are a junior and you just have a boot camp, you are basically competing with thousands of people that basically know the same as you. So that's a problem. You really need to stand up. So that's hard. And also, you can do it, but I would recommend it just if you really want it and you are willing to put a lot of time. I'm being serious in that, a lot of time. If you think that you are gonna just study 3 hours per day and you're gonna get a job in 1 year, nope, that's not possible. You really need to be focused, putting hours and hours. And also, if you don't have a mentor, it's hard. It's because you cannot just learn technologies. You need to learn about all the software engineering mindset or skill set, the problem solving stuff. And those are things that you get working, not just doing personal projects. You can use personal projects to learn about technologies, but to learn about the industry, to learn about problem solving, you need to work. And that's really, really a problem because when you're working on a personal project, you have everything like well defined. You don't have problems. You are your own boss. You don't have like budget problems. You're just doing it. But at work, you're gonna find horrific stuff. You're gonna find things that are really bad, and you cannot change it because the company do not have budget for that. So that in that place is where you learn, right? So I would recommend it, but definitely if it's possible to pursue like a degree, right? A degree and also putting a lot of effort, just not learning the stuff that you learn in college because as I said, thousands of people have the same skill set. So it's using like you're studying your degree and also putting like extra time in learning different stuff, right? If yeah, I think that's like the main idea because boot camps. I think everyone knows that just doing boot camps and learning technologies on the internet is not gonna get you a job in 2025, 2024 in the majority of cases.
So even though you can learn a lot by yourself online, you still think it's a good idea to go to a university and get a degree in software engineering even now.
Yeah, for sure. I think now is really important in and not just for the stuff that they teach you, is because the connections.
Mm,
For example, me, I got my first job because a connection of a professor. And I think that was like the best thing that I got in my degree. I was in a college course and I was doing great and my project was really good and my professor was like a director, IT director, and he liked my stuff and so he put me like basically in the company. So that was luck, but at the same time, I couldn't have that if I didn't went to that course, right?
yeah. So there's two things, interesting things. The first thing you said was, man, if you think you're going to study 3 hours a day and get a job in 2024 or five, you're out of your mind. So on average, if you just had to estimate somebody who knows nothing about software engineering, wants to get started and is ready and has the time, on average, how many hours a day do you think they would have to spend studying and for how long? 3, 6, 9, 12 months before they're even ready to start trying to get a job?
It's hard to estimate like time because, of course, people learned in different
Well,
speeds,
yeah,
right?
use your experience. Like if you had to think about yourself starting today.
For me,
Mm,
it took like 2, 3 years of going to college and also studying myself to get my job. But
mm,
for me, right, basically, if you want, for example, and you have luck and you learn a technology, just a one technology, for example, React, you know, and you learn it very, very well, and you're really good at it, and you apply to jobs. Maybe if you're like a good person and you have charisma and you pass the interviews, you can get a job. That's possible, but you need to be really good. I would say like a year, because people that know React, you have like you have a lot of people. Everyone knows React, right? So you have to really stand out.
mm.
Really be good.
Right. And so that's the second thing is it's not just about studying by yourself or even just taking a university course. You said if you don't have a mentor, it's extremely hard to learn the skills that a real software engineer needs. So of course, like you said, you got lucky with your university professor, but if somebody's not in school or maybe they go to school and they don't meet any professors that have those kind of connections, if you were in their shoes, what would you do to go about finding a quality mentor? And how do you know if one's good or bad?
Yeah, there are Discord servers. Programmers Hangout is one that is really good, and it works if you are from the US. But if you are from other country, that is a different story because
Mm,
maybe the advices, the piece of advice they give you is they are not pliable to hear, right? So that's something that you need to think about. But definitely a Discord server like that one that I said can help you and can give you information about what to learn and what is good right now.
But so how do you know if let's assume that they're from the same country or they have experience and that's applicable to you. How do you know that somebody's leading you down the right or the wrong path?
I think you cannot just trust in one person. You need
Mm,
to have like different point of views, different, I would say, people with different roles, so you know what people think, and also, for example, something that I know and I think is a good advice is that people really like to learn a lot of programming languages. I don't know, right? Like, I don't know why. Like, beginners, they think that if you know 15 programming languages, you're going to be the best one. That's the worst thing that you can do.
hmm
The best thing that you can do is just focus in one thing and improving in that thing, just doing projects. If you, of course, if you don't have a job, doing personal projects, also learning how to interview. I think that's important. For me, it's hard. I'm really bad interviewing because I get like nervous, but like knowing all the interview skills is important, and focusing just on one stuff. And answering your question about how do you know if advice or a person is really telling you like the truth, is something that you cannot know.
Mhm.
Like, you can be, if you're not into the industry and you really don't know, it's impossible for you to know if an advice is good or is bad. You just, I think, as I said, the best thing is just to find different point of views.
Mhm. How do you choose a language then? Because, like you said, I've heard the same thing. A lot of people, I remember when I flirted with the idea of software, I think we were talking at that point that
Yeah,
I
definitely.
was flirting with web development, learning the basics of JavaScript, and then it was time to choose a framework. And I'm like, all these people are saying React is what you should learn, and some people say Angular is much harder, and that Vue is kind of like a mixture of the two. And that's what I started learning, just because the syntax made the most sense to me. It felt the most natural. But obviously, without the experience, I didn't know. And so naturally, you might go on LinkedIn or some other job posting site and say, all these companies are asking for this technology, so that's what I should learn. And it might have been you or some other programmer that told me, yeah, but everybody else is thinking the same way. So it
Exactly.
might not be an advantage like you think it is. Because if everybody knows React, and then you're just another person. So for you, it's like trying to put yourself in a beginner's shoes again. How would you choose a language, and what would be the criteria?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you need to do is basically took a programming course, the basic one, all the programming like thinking and all of that. Once you know the basic stuff, you need to basically make research of what you want to do. For example, if you want React or Angular, that's front end. That's a different thing. That back end, that are different technologies, different things that you need to learn. So basically making that distinction is important. Once you know what you want to do, for example, in my case is backend, but if example you want to learn front end, you're gonna go and watch in your country which are the most used technologies and which are the opportunities in that technology. For example, React. Maybe you have, I don't know, 100 open positions in React, but in every one of the positions you have 200 people applying. So that's something bad, right? That's something that is not well. Maybe if you see Angular, maybe it has 50 positions open, less, but in every position you have 50 people, 30 people. So you have less opportunities, but you have more chance of getting one. And if you go, I don't know, Vue, that is not, is a really good technology, but at least here in Costa Rica, is not used as much. You know, you have 20 positions open, and every position has 10 people. So that's a good sign, right? Maybe you have less opportunities, but you have more chances of getting one. So I think what you need to do is to make that research, and also I think that's like the goal. If your goal is to get a job, that's definitely what you are going to do, the best
Hmm.
thing you can do. But maybe you do not need the job right now and you're willing to spend more time learning stuff. You can go into a path, a front end path or a back end path. So you learn a framework, you learn how to use databases, you learn about protocols, you learn about SQL, you learn about networking. So you have like a strong skill set so you can be a better candidate to a job. But of course that requires time. So you need to know like what's your range of time.
It's like getting married almost, or at least that's what it sounds like. You're making a life changing decision and you're dedicating all this time and energy to it without really knowing if it's going to be worth it. And that was my fear once I
Definitely.
started. I was like, okay, I'm so afraid to pick the wrong framework. And I
Yeah.
loved Vue, but as you just said, it was the least common framework that companies were asking for. So I'm like, damn, what if I dedicate the next 3 years to learning Vue. And 3 years from now, because back then, like you said, from that 2019 to 2023 window, there was constantly new frameworks and that this is the hottest one you should learn. And the companies are asking for this. So you're just, that natural anxiety creeps in and you're like, shit, in 3 years, people might not even be using this shit. So then what?
Exactly.
And all that time, I haven't even gotten a job. I was just preparing for the job. So it's like, shit, bro. I mean, you really, like you said in the beginning, it's like you have to be willing to dedicate a lot of time to this thing. And also, it sounds like, accept the fact that there's really zero guarantees that it's all going to be worth it. The only guarantee is that you will understand software engineering better. You'll get better at the fundamental concepts. And once you learn one framework, similar to spoken languages, once you learn one, you know how to learn other ones because you're much more familiar. But there's no
Definitely. Yeah.
guarantee that all that work is going to really pay off in the form of a job, let's say.
Exactly. And you said something really important about new technologies every day. That's something that people tend to, I would say, to think that if there's a new framework and the framework is, I don't know, 20% faster than the other framework, you're gonna learn this one because this one is the good one. That's definitely not nonsense. Because maybe you can get like companies are not going to apply those frameworks. They sometimes companies use older frameworks. Right now, you can, for example, no one wants to learn Java, right? Java is an old programming language. Spring Boot, that is a framework of Java, is old, but you have a lot of jobs in Java, a lot in banks and insurance companies, because it is not about the which technology is the best, is which technology companies are using, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really important. And as you said, you do not have like a guarantee that you're going to get a job. That's something I think bad about software engineering, is that it's too accessible. It's good, but it's bad. If it's too accessible, of course, people are going to learn it. So you have more competition. So I think that's a problem with this career. And I would say, I don't know if other careers have the same problem, but this one, definitely.
So you're not at all concerned about the fact that so many positions in the world of tech are in fact getting automated away. You don't fear for your job or think that at some point it will become obsolete and you'll have to learn a different type of programming or get more versed in AI or machine learning, or like, how do you see these changes as somebody who's working in programming, and are you currently working to prepare yourself to change positions or just get better at what you do? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm definitely fear about that. That's for sure, because we don't even know like the future. We don't even know if the things that we know right now are going to be applicable in 5 years, 10 years, right? And also, software engineering, in fact, is increasing. Like the technologies are increasing exponential, right? In 1980, you have like one thing, and if you do that thing, you're good, right? You don't even have like much old programmers right now, right? Because it's a new thing, and all programmers are doing management stuff, right? So, as answering your question, I am preparing, in fact, to change my job in 2025. And what I do right now, having like 3 years of experience, is to showcase the things that I learn in my job right now. So, for example, I work with .NET and C Sharp, that is a backend technology, right? So I'm trying to showcase the things that I did in my job, and also learning new stuff, more advanced stuff about that technology. So when I go to an interview, I I'm really good at that. I can answer a question about that. And also, I'm preparing for the technical interviews, that they are more focused in data structures and algorithms. That it is something that, the thing with that is that you need to practice it, having like a goal. For example, if you want to switch your job in 3 months, you start doing it with a 3 month plan, because you cannot, well, you can, but it's hard practice algorithms and data structures and memorize them, not memorize them, but understanding them really, really well so you can answer questions about that. So basically, with those questions, basically, you need to know the question. You need to see the question before so you can answer it because they are, you need to be extremely intelligent to answer them like just like that if you haven't seen that question before. So you need to practice those questions so when you go to your technical interview, you have seen that question so you are good to go. And so I'm preparing in that, and also I'm preparing in system design. System design is basically how you design your software, all the architecture, all the protocols, all the connections. So sometimes I'm not sure if all positions, I think it's more like a mid software engineer to senior engineer, they ask you a lot of system design questions. So you need to be prepared in that.
And when you say algorithm question, are we talking about mathematical equations? What do you mean by question?
Not questions, but algorithms are like steps to accomplish something, right? For example, do you know what an array is? Like a list.
Yes.
Yeah, you, for example, they ask you a really simple question of, please check if a list, any list, has duplicate numbers. How do you do it? So you need to design an algorithm that takes a list and returns, for example, true or false if the list has like a duplicate number. And you need to do it in certain time complexity that is called, for example, is like a mathematical measure that for if an algorithm is fast or slow, for example, if an algorithm is constant, it means that it takes the same time no matter the input. But if it's like, for example, logarithm, it takes less. And if it's like, for example, the power of two, I don't remember like the name, it means that it's really slow. So you have like constraints about the time complexity. You need to solve it in certain time complexity and also in memory space. So there is stuff that you need to learn and practice, definitely.
That much is clear, bro. You're like speaking German to me right now. But you didn't answer my question. That part I understand. It's like they and I guess what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is the reason that you need to have some type of time frame, let's call it 3 months, is because, like you said, if you haven't answered a question like that recently, similar to speaking like a Spanish or French or some other language that you've learned, if you haven't used those sentence structures in a while, it's going to be very hard to recall them and just use them. And when you're being tested on it for a job, obviously that's important. Is that right?
Exactly. That's it.
Okay.
You need to have like a specific plan. For example, 3 months plan of you when you learn about the topics that are required. So you put certain time per day for that, and you have like a short time. So when you go to an interview, you can remember the things that you do. If you start practicing 1 year, with 1 year, with 1 year, for example, you are not going to remember the things that you did nine months ago. And a lot of those questions you really need to basically remember them because they are really hard, and come up with the solutions in an interview with 40 minutes, stressed, nervous, with someone seeing you and asking you questions. I don't know, man. That's a problem.
Definitely. Yeah. That's one thing that surprised me once I started learning about programming, software engineering, is that even seasoned professionals who've been doing this for over a decade forget things all the time. It's not
For
like you just walk
sure.
around with all this information in your head and you're just some wizard throwing these things together. You're Googling stuff, looking at Stack Overflow. I don't even know if they use that anymore, but sites like that, using Chat GPT and things
Yeah,
just to get code snippets or answer questions. I mean, it's more like being able to use all of these tools rather than being a complete master of each one and never forgetting
exactly.
how each one of them works in detail, I guess, if I can say it that way. So that's the technical side. But another thing
Mhm.
that you mentioned, which I also found relatively surprising about the career of software engineering, is that it's not just your technical ability, because some people are genuinely gifted when it comes to that side of it, but it's
Definitely.
also your soft skills, your interview skills, how you work with the team. So can you speak about that a little bit and what you learned from your experience and how important being able to communicate and interview and work with others actually is?
Man, I really think that you need to have like a balance between your hard skills and your soft skills. Because if you're just like a technical person and you don't really know how to treat people and manage people and talk with shareholders and all that, you're not going to have like a long career. You're gonna get stuck in senior engineer, maybe staff engineer, maybe, but that's it. You cannot be mentally sharp for 4 years. Sooner or later you're gonna be less and less productive if you're just a technical person. You need to learn soft skills, manage people, have the I would say have the opportunity to lead a team. So then you can get a different position when you where you require less technical things and more, I would say, management things. So I think that's the way. I think that's a good way because, as I said before, if you're 40, 50 years old, you cannot be as sharp as you were when you were 20 years old, right? So you need to manage people. I think for me, I think that's a good path. I don't manage people, of course. I just have 3 years, right, in the market, but I would do that. I definitely would do that if I have the opportunity.
And how would you practice or improve the skill of communication for passing interviews and getting involved in a new company when you've never done this before? What would you do?
When an interview is just like basically practicing, there are a lot of courses, but when you are like in the company and you are in that place, you really need to stand out, talking, asking questions, and also giving your opinion, right? And trying to always, like, I would say, be kind to people, help people as much as you can. If people have a good, let's say, vision of you, sooner or later you're gonna get a good position if the company is good. If your company do not listen to your things or your things that you want, your ideas, it's not a good company. You're not gonna, I would say, grow. Because if you really want and people is and the company is good, you're gonna have the opportunity to lead people, right? And when you lead people, that's a different story. You're gonna learn a lot. For example, happened to me that right now I'm a mid engineer, so I am with two juniors, right? So I'm not the team lead, something like that, but I'm very close to that juniors, and I help them, and I'm always like answering questions, and you really learn about a lot of stuff when you listen to people. That's for sure. And you really, when you explain things, that's the best way to learn. Even things that you're not sure, maybe they ask you something that you don't really know. When you search it and explain it, you're gonna remember that for sure.
100%. Yeah, I think that's applicable to any discipline, man, whether
Yeah,
it's language learning, programming, sports, martial arts, it doesn't matter, man. Like you get to discover how much you really know and how well you really understand something when somebody asks you to explain it without referencing a book or a video or something like that. It really is the best way to learn. And so what you're saying makes perfect sense. Like many things, it's just practice. And I guess for practice interviewing, what I would imagine you'd have to do besides taking courses is just do a lot of interviews
yeah,
with
for
the
sure.
knowledge, just accepting like I may not get this job, but at least I'll know what an interview is like and what my weak points are.
Yeah, man. I think the good mindset for an interview is just not having the idea that you're gonna get the job.
Hmm.
Just go and be like, okay, I'm gonna make mistakes. Doesn't matter, and do the best as you can. And if you make something wrong and you fail the interview, for example, you failed, I don't know, the technical interview, at least you know how they work. At least you know what they ask you, so you can have an idea of what is being asked right now in technical interviews, or what is being asked in interviews with HR, right? So I think it's just like try and fail, try and fail, try and fail till you get a job.
Yeah. Is there such thing as interviewing too early though? Because if the idea is to get the experience as soon as possible so you can then prepare to do well in the future, is there a time that's just way too early before you try for the first time?
Well, I think you have to take a look at the description of the job. If you, I don't know, if there's 10 bullet points, an example, and you know five or six, just go and make the interview. You can do well. But if
Okay.
you don't know shit about all the bullet points and all the things, doesn't make sense. You're gonna waste the company's time and money. So
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Can you talk about the importance of English as well? I mean, that's how we met. How many years ago was that, man? When did we meet?
I think like 3 years ago,
Yeah, man. And
maybe four, I
obviously,
guess.
what is this, 2024? Yeah, it was around 2020 or something like that, maybe
Yeah,
2021.
2020, I think.
And of course, seeing like your progression with English over that time span has been incredible, but obviously it wasn't always like it is now. And so I'm curious to know from your perspective, something that everybody knows intuitively. If you speak good English, then you obviously have more opportunities and you can qualify for more jobs. But for somebody who maybe isn't taking it as seriously as they should be, or somebody who thinks, I speak basic English, so that's enough because I'm never going to use it in the job. Can you talk about how important or unimportant English has been since you started your career?
Man, if you right for in software engineering, if you don't know English, you're not going to do anything. For me, that's even not like something. It's not a plus. It's like the bare minimum
Mm,
having a good English, and that's something that really put me to work because I don't know, like 4 years ago when we started, I knew like English because I had like education, but I was shy, right? And that I was like, oh shit, I need to talk with people. I'm like, I forget the words, I get tongue tied. So I think it's important. I think it's something that you really need to have like a priority. Like if you do not know English, you just if you and you want to be like a software engineer, you need to balance your time between technical things and English, like even like 50-50, because you really need to know English. And for example, having like an opportunity to get a job, just for example, in Spanish is hard. It's really hard. And the competition is going to be massive. Because if you just know Spanish and your company is, for example, in a Latin American company, a lot of people that do not know Spanish are going to apply to that job. So you need to really know different languages so you have more opportunities, different companies, and other places to go.
yeah. But what about the learning process, though? Like how you learn to speak English? If I'm not mistaken, since you were a kid, like most people, you had some English classes and took those traditional courses. But now, as an adult, what would you say would be the top two or three things that somebody should focus on if they have a bit of knowledge about English and they really want to learn effectively? Because a lot of people will spend time on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube videos, even online courses and things of that nature. But for you, what do you think would be the best way to spend your time to improve quickly?
You are like an inner, I would say like a maybe mid level, like B2, something like that. Is just reading, man. I think reading is good, but reading not just reading for just read, right? Read, focusing, learning stuff, and of course speaking, man. I think reading and speaking, for me at least, is what I do and is really important to me. If you know the basics of grammar, I think learning vocabulary is the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously different for everybody. Some people learn better by writing or listening or whatever. But I mean, you and I both know it's kind of a loaded question. You and I both know the best way to improve is speaking. And that's the one thing that most people tend to avoid doing. But I do agree that reading is such an underrated way to learn new
Yeah,
words, man. And it's a low pressure type of activity because nobody's waiting on you to do it quickly. You can read about whatever you want. And as you said,
exactly.
if it's something, if it's a good subject or a useful subject, you're also learning about that subject at the same time. So I'd recommend that to anybody. And this is off topic, man, but I don't want to forget about this. I'm very curious to know what you think about the recent attempt on former President Trump's life. I know you heard about this, man. I'm
Damn, bro,
curious to know
that
what your thoughts
was,
are.
man. The first thing that I thought when I saw the video was like, man, this is fake. It's just like the time when he like moved his head and the bullet like passed through his ear. Like it was just like what? I don't know, man. That for me, I don't know why, but it doesn't sound. At least I don't see that is being like a really big topic in the US. I don't really see that it's like a boom. I see a lot of news, but I don't see like more happening, right? Like consequences, something like that. For me, that's like that's weird because for me, that's like oh shit, that's bad, that's really
It's a big fucking deal. Yeah.
yeah, big deal.
Yeah. Um, of course, everybody has their own perspective on it. A lot of people do think it was in fact staged. It wasn't a real assassination attempt. That somebody is doing this to make him even more popular and increase the chance
Hmm.
that he wins. Other people believe it was a real attempt. It was just very poorly done. Um, I still don't know what I think. I mean, I don't think any of us will ever really know, at least not in the near future. Maybe 50 years
Yeah,
from now when they do some documentary and they get all the facts or whatever. But I don't think any of us really know what happened. We just know what we believe we saw. What I
yeah.
find most strange, though, I find many things strange. The first one was okay, if they shot at his head, he grabs his ear to see like what the fuck, something just hit me, and then you hear like 6 to 7 more shots. We don't know who is shooting those guns.
Hmm.
So he hits the ground, and of course some of the Secret Service rush over to protect him. Other ones were just ducking and protecting themselves, which is fucking crazy. But then it's like they let him stand up, expose his head again, and he raises his fist like for power. I'm still here, power to the people, that we're in this
Oh,
fight
that's
together or some shit.
crazy.
Like, why would they let him do that if
I
they know
don't
there's
know.
bullets flying trying to take his head off? I don't know how Secret Service works,
That's
but that
weird.
doesn't make any sense to me. His whole head was exposed as they let him do this. It's like, what is that about,
I don't
bro?
know, man.
That
But
was
the
my first question.
photo of him doing like this sign was like, oh damn,
Yeah, man,
that's
it's what?
badass.
Fuck. I mean, exactly, exactly. It's like, I've seen so many memes and paintings and fucking just so much media produced of him
I've
doing
seen
this picture.
tattoos, bro.
You know what I
People
mean?
tattooed the
Yeah,
scene of
bro.
him like doing this.
Yes. Yes, bro. I've seen it all. I
Yeah.
went down the rabbit hole the last couple of days since that shit happened, listening to podcasts and everything. And it's bizarre, man. It's a very bizarre situation altogether. And what I find most shocking, back to what I was saying, is that an attempt, let's just assume it was real, an attempt was made on a man's life. A former president and now presidential candidate, an attempt was made on his life. They tried to take his head off. And an alarming number of people's reaction is to make memes about it and say, damn, I wish, like, how I'm mad that they missed. I'm
Yeah.
mad that they missed, or like, they're just making jokes and trying to go viral on social. So many media platforms are using this as a way to get views and attention, which I understand. I just think
Yeah.
it's bizarre. They tried theoretically to murder him, and we're all just acting like it's like whatever. That to me was the most shocking thing. Whereas 50, 60 years ago, I don't
It
think the reaction would
was,
have been the same. It would have been a national or international tragedy that we'd see
yeah.
on the news all day, every day for months. But now it's just like it's just a meme. Ha! They tried to kill him. That's weird, bro.
Man, I think that's the way it works right now. I don't know, it's weird. I think social media convert us to, weird beings. I don't know,
Yeah,
it's
I think
like,
that we've lost a bit of touch with reality in some sense. Where I think maybe because of the nature of many of these platforms, where it's just video after video, event after event, you don't even really have time to get intimate with and then process whatever just happened,
mm,
because now there's another video to watch and another event, and then there's the war, and then there's fake food, and then there's this and that. So it's like you don't really even have time to process the fact that somebody tried to murder a man on live television, assuming it's true, assuming that was real.
yeah,
And so I don't know, man. We demonize social media all the time, but I think it would be nice, it would be smart to step back and really process that idea that somebody just
got
attempted to
shot.
murder a man on TV, and we're joking about it, making
Yeah.
memes and shit. Like, bro, what if that was your dad? What if that was your brother or your husband, and they tried to murder him on live TV, and the public's reaction was, "Let's joke about it," as if they were shooting paintball guns or something.
Yeah, that's what I said. That for me it's weird that it was something funny. For me, it's funny, because I'm. It's like, what the hell? It's not that important, but as you
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
50 years ago, it would be like international news, right? So, man, I don't know. I think it's the way it works right now. It's like no one really have faith in politics. No one really cares about that. They know that if they choose Biden or they choose Trump or whatever, it's gonna be the same. It's not going to be a better country or whatever in whatever country. So yeah, I think important topics they don't really people in general don't really put that attention in that. Even if you go to, for example, I don't know, do you have a lot of racism fightings, right? Like, how's the name? And
Race riots.
yeah, exactly. It's just like Twitter posts or, well, X or whatever, and IG posts, and it's not like some 20 years ago that you went to the streets and, I don't know, destroying stuff. More like we're involved in that right now. It's not like that.
Yeah, unless you're in England and you just lost the final of the Euros. I don't know if you've been following that. I know you're not big into football, but man,
No.
the reaction of these people, of course, I'm generalizing. Not all English people are like this, but the reaction online, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, of these people who are now racially attacking and antagonizing, making fun of all the black English players and saying that these niggas are the reason
Oh
that
yeah.
we lost the final. I've seen pictures of somebody that used Photoshop. I don't know if you know who Bukayo Saka is. He's a very popular English player, very talented, and arguably one of the best players in the Euro tournament that just came to an end. They took his face and basically put a gorilla's face on top of it and made him look
Oh,
just like
okay.
a gorilla, saying that this motherfucker, this nigga, just lost us the final. And we've heard reports. I haven't seen any videos. I've only heard reports of that night. Various black people that were in Britain or in England during the end of the game or whatever were getting beat up in the streets, just getting attacked by a bunch of white people. Again, I don't know if it's true. It's very believable when you
For
consider
sure, man.
what
I don't
country we're
know, man.
talking about. And it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know what the cause of that is, because obviously racism isn't a new thing. And British people are very good at PR, much like the US, but there's a lot of fucking racist people in that country and the surrounding countries. So it's not like it's a
Man.
surprise. But for something like that, for them to lose a game and to be like, well, this is all we need. This is the only excuse that we need to start making memes like this and literally beating niggas up in the streets as if they're responsible for us losing the
Yeah,
final. That's
doesn't
wild
make
shit, man.
sense.
And people, again, joking about it online, making memes and TikToks. Like, it's just bad. What can you do?
I don't know, man. We have a problem. I've seen that in Europe right now, the racism problem, has been quite
Intense.
difficult. Yeah, and I don't know why. I don't even know why people is like racist. It's like nonsense.
Yeah, for intelligent people like yourself and me, yeah, it's obviously stupid, but I mean, by definition, racism is just ignorance. So I think right now, if I had to guess, I'm not on the ground there in Europe knowing what's happening, but if I had to guess, based on what I've seen and heard, it's because of what's happening with immigration. A lot of these countries that think of themselves as liberal and good people who want to help others, they're opening their borders to a lot of refugees from countries where most people are brown or black. And these
Hmm.
people come into these, well, some of these people go into those countries and commit horrific crimes, raping girls and robbing people and murder and stabbings, and all this bad shit is happening. And a lot of it is being done by a small number. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say a small number of them are committing these horrific crimes, and it turns out they're illegal, undocumented immigrants that were just let into the country to do whatever they want to do. So these natives, if we can call them that, the English, the Germans, the Dutch, the French, whatever, these people are saying, why the fuck are we letting these people into our country and treating them better than we treat people that are from here? We're giving them money and rights and government benefits, and they're coming in and fucking up the system. They're not respecting the culture. They're not learning the language. They're bringing their religion and their crime and all these things, and we want them out of here. And so, of course, people who support that type of stuff are saying, well, you're racist.
Hmm.
You're saying that because they're brown or because they're black. You're racist if you don't agree with open borders. And they're saying, no, we're not racist. It's just we want to maintain our way of life. This is our country. And they should have to
Hmm.
go through at least the normal legal process to get in. And if they commit crimes, they should be put in prison or sent back to where they came from. So I think it's a multifaceted issue. I think some of it is pure racism, but some of it is just like anti open borders and anti crime and shit like
Yeah.
that. So that's my read on it.
Yeah, man. But for example, I saw on TikTok. I don't know if it's like information is like for 100% true, but in the US, for example, like it's like less than 20% of crimes are committed by immigrant people, or less than 10 or something like that. And the other was like just white people, not even like black people, like white people. So I was like, man, like you don't even have like information or good, like, yeah, like proof that that is true, that only immigrants commit crimes. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah. I have no idea what the actual statistics are. I'm not even going to speak on that. I think that's a
yeah.
hilarious one if that's true. But I have no idea, man. But again, all of our perceptions are so distorted because of the media that we consume, and we don't always think about the fact that just because we see a video or hear an idea multiple times doesn't mean it's true. We don't know what's really going on. What we do know, however, is that at least in the US, the border has been opened. You can go to the US border right now. They'll not only let you come in without documenting yourself, they'll give you a plane ticket to wherever you want to go in the States. You want to go to New York? Here's a free ticket. Here's a prepaid debit card with $500 on it. Just take it. They are, in fact, giving a lot of illegal immigrants benefits that could and should be used for the American people who are
Mhm.
sleeping on the streets addicted to drugs because they lost their jobs in
And
2020 after they were forced out, and the billionaires that own those companies just got even richer. I mean, how you guys feel about that is up to y'all. I'm just saying the facts, bro. That should happen.
yeah,
And so I
yeah,
think
no,
people have
man.
a problem with that. And again, some of it is just blatant racism. They don't want any brown or black people entering the country, but other people are just patriotic and they love their country and they don't want to see it changed, especially because of something like this, illegal immigration. And some of those people are coming in and committing horrific crimes. And of course, they immediately go to the fact that they are illegal immigrants, and this would not have happened if they weren't let into the country. So, just like in Europe, I think it's the same here. It's a multifaceted thing. None of us really know what's going on or how many things are going on at the same time. So, I have no opinion on what the solution is, man. I don't know. I really
Yeah,
don't.
I don't really know, man. But one thing that is true is that racist people don't want people, brown people, black people in their country, but they do not want to do the jobs that brown people or black people do. That's funny because I'm sure that people, I don't know, white people or whatever, they do not want to clean streets because it's too, I don't know, the wage is really really low or whatever. So who is cleaning the streets? Immigrants, that's for sure, or building the houses or doing the garden or whatever. So how do you fix this problem, or how do you regulate that? Is, I don't know, man. I don't even have like an opinion in that. It's just like it is what it is.
Yeah. I don't have an opinion either, man. I'm sure if there are some Americans listening, pretty mad at you right now for what you just said. But I think what you said is valid though, because again, we're generalizing. We're making very general
Yeah, for
statements.
sure. Yeah,
So it's like I honestly don't know either, man. I don't support the idea of just open borders. I
no, me
definitely don't
neither.
support
Yeah,
that. But I mean, now that they're open, what exactly are we supposed to do? It's the same as the gun issue. It's like we already have the guns. What are you going to do? Just take them from everybody? What are you going to do at this point? You're not
yeah,
getting rid of them, bro. So I don't know. I think much smarter people will have to be responsible for solving those issues, man. I don't know what we're going to do about that one. I do think we're getting to a weird stage, though, where at least speaking about America, speaking about Canada, some Western European countries, there's an influx of immigrants, which at least partially is causing Americans, Canadians, and Europeans to want to leave their country. It's not the only thing making them want to leave. because there's a lot of things that are going to shit, and it's not just immigration. But I just find it weird. I kind of find it funny that so many of us are like, this country's not even worth saving. Let me just go enjoy my life in Thailand
In
or the
Thailand.
Philippines or Brazil or Costa Rica or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad when you think about it that the people from that country are just like, man, this shit is so fucked up. I'm just gonna, not because we're torn by war or because we're dirt poor, but just because it's like so expensive. Healthcare system is fucked. They're giving more rights and privileges to people coming here than the people that are from here. I can't fix this shit. I'm gonna just go live on a beach in Thailand, spending dollars instead of baht. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. So it's a really social problem, I guess, because if you, for example, I don't know, travel to Thailand and you are there and you see like the poverty or things that are there, and you now have an idea why people immigrate, right?
Yep.
So if you go to other countries and you have that visions, you're gonna really talk shit about people that immigrate, knowing all the problems that they have, and if they go, for example, to Europe, they will have more opportunities or whatever. So, are you really gonna talk bad about that people knowing their situation?
It's a very valid point.
Yeah,
100%, man. Yeah.
because
But the question is, are you supportive of the idea of open borders though? Whether or not you're documented, you can just come in and figure it out.
no, man, I don't really know. I think it's not like something that you need to be like black or white. You have to have like shades of that, right?
Mhm.
So I don't really know. I'm just like thinking about people that immigrate and why they immigrated. You cannot be like pointing that person for doing that if you don't know their situation
Yeah.
and you don't know the problems that they have. And if they have a little bit of opportunity, or I would say light in the path, if they immigrate, of course they're gonna do it. You will do it if you had that situation, right? So it's like, what can you do? Because you cannot just talk about just your situation. Because, for example, you and me, you we are not going to immigrate illegally or whatever and just cross the border because we have more opportunities, right? We have certain stability, so we are not going to do it. So we do not have that vision, right? You do not live in that position. If you live in a really really bad position, yeah, and you have an opportunity, of course you're gonna take it, and it's not easy. So you cannot just point people that immigrate. For me, it's nonsense, because they do
Agreed.
not immigrate just because they want to live in Germany. Of course not. They don't want to leave their fucking family or home country. They don't want it. It's just this small light or opportunity that they see. They're gonna take it. I will take it. You will take it. That's for sure.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. I'm
So
taking it. I live in Thailand, bro. It's the same shit. I'm not
yeah.
traveling for the or leaving for the same reason, and I can go back whenever I want. That's the difference. But
Mhm.
immigrating to another country to take advantage of the benefits or live a better life, we all do that. Of course, I've done it legally, and a lot of people's problems is the illegal immigration that's happening, which I can totally understand. It is certainly a problem, especially when illegal immigrants are getting more privileges and benefits than people from that country. I think that's what
Yeah.
pisses people off.
Yeah. For
It's not
sure.
even
And
necessarily
that's a
that they come
valid point.
illegally for a better life. It's like you're giving them housing and free money and access to healthcare, and they're not even paying taxes for all that shit. So
Hmm.
I think that's what pisses people off a lot.
Yeah, I
And it
understand
gets
it.
the media puts the fuel on the fire by talking about the crimes that are getting committed and all that type of stuff. So I agree 100%, man. It's if you don't have any other options, you're going to take that chance and go to that
Mm.
country, not because you want to, but because you feel like you have to. And I think it's sexy and it's good for a TikTok video when a Westerner or another American does it. And it's evil if somebody from Latin America or Africa or the Middle East does the same thing for basically the same reasons. So I agree 100%.
Exactly, man. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not like some, you cannot just be like pointing people. But of course, it's a valid point that you cannot give like a lot of opportunities to that people or whatever. You know, it's hard because of course people of that country are gonna feel that they are putting too much attention in other people and not in their own people. So,
Hmm.
so I think both sides are valid. That's for sure. And somehow we need to find like a good balance or whatever. I don't really know. I'm not a politician. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not responsible for finding the solution to a problem like that, bro.
Yeah,
That's fucking
yeah,
A, man. You start to understand why a lot of us, we know these problems exist and we know we need to focus on them and fix them, but like, who has the answer, bro? Not me. I don't want to be responsible for that shit. So it's like, that, man, just focus on yourself. Try to be a decent person. You know what I mean? Help others when you can. I try to stay out of those kind of debates unless I know what I'm talking about or we're just shooting ideas back and forth. And it's like, okay, like we're doing right now, but we don't fucking know, bro.
yeah. I don't know.
No
You,
idea.
we're just talking.
Yeah, man. But Jose, great conversation, man. I don't know what your schedule's like, but I guess that's a good time to end it. And you're welcome back anytime you want, man, on the pod. It's fun. We do this every week. We just recorded this shit. So
Yeah, for me it's the
only
same, just like
difference.
recording
Yeah,
it.
man. Yeah, it's always a lot of fun, man. So thank you again for coming on the show, my friend. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off there, man.